Hello everyone. Today I'm going to continue telling you the story of the single mother, Diệu Hân. The next morning, faint sunlight streamed through the small window, illuminating the house and making everything clearer after a tense night. Tai stirred slightly, his heavy eyes opening in a daze. He was utterly shocked to find his hands tightly bound with a sturdy rope, unable to free himself no matter how hard he tried. Around him was an unfamiliar house, with the faint scent of wood and kitchen smoke. Definitely not a place he recognized. He shot up, eyes filled with confusion and anger. What the hell is this? Where am I? Who tied me up? The loud noise startled on awake. She immediately remembered what had happened the night before and called out in alarm. Hân, he's awake. Han walked in from outside, gripping a long bamboo stick she had prepared the night before for self-defense. Her face was tense and alert. Even though Tai's hands were securely tied, neither she nor An could relax completely. Tai was a rough troublemaker with a bad history, so their guard was up. An stood behind Han, clutching her phone tightly, ready to call for help if anything went wrong. Han kept her voice firm, though the tension was obvious. You just sit still. We don't want any trouble, but if you try anything stupid, I won't hold back. Tai squinted at Han, then glanced around the house with suspicion and annoyance. The atmosphere turned into a silent standoff, one side wary, the other still confused about the situation. The air in the room grew heavy, as if one wrong move could set off an explosion. Tai stayed quiet for a while, his gaze slowly sharpening. After scanning the room, he sighed hoarsely. Fine, untie me. I don't want trouble anymore. Let me go home. Han and An exchanged hesitant looks. They knew that keeping him here too long could make things complicated, but neither wanted to get too close to a man with his kind of reputation. Finally, Han gave a slight nod to An. An approached Tai cautiously, bamboo stick still in hand, eyes locked on him. Meanwhile, Han carefully loosened the rope bit by bit. Tai sat still, but his eyes kept darting around, making the tension rise again. As soon as the rope came off, he rubbed his red, swollen wrists, then immediately checked his belongings. His shirt pockets, pants, and wallet. Han and An froze slightly, worried he might lash out if something was missing. Unexpectedly, he chuckled. Everything's still here. Money too. Guess you two weren't trying to rob me. He stood up, straightened his clothes, and headed for the door. But just as he reached it, he suddenly stopped, pulled all the crumpled bills out of his wallet, quite a bit of money, and held them out toward Han. Take it. Consider it my way of saying thanks. If it weren't for you two last night, I'd have been done for. Han was caught off guard by his gesture. She looked at the money, then back at him, feeling a mix of pity, caution, and discomfort. But after a brief pause, she shook her head firmly. I don't need your money. We did it out of conscience. Just go home and don't cause trouble anymore. Tai stared at her for a few seconds, as if wanting to say something more, but then shrugged and stuffed the money back into his wallet. Suit yourself. But remember this, you saved me last night. He turned and walked away, limping slightly but steadier than the night before. As his figure disappeared down the dirt road, An let out a long sigh of relief and collapsed into a chair, while Han stood silently watching, her heart heavy after the turbulent night and morning. Meanwhile, on that same misty morning road, Tan was heading home after finishing some errands when he noticed a familiar figure in the distance. He squinted. It was Tai, limping, his face still dusty and disheveled. But what made Tan's heart race was the direction Tai had just come from, Han's house. A sense of dread rose in his mind. Why was he there? Did something happen to Han and Tom? Without hesitation, Tan rushed forward, grabbed Tai by the shoulder, and yanked him back. Hey, you just came from Han's house, didn't you? What did you do to her? Speak up. Tai winced from the pain in his leg and snapped irritably. Let go. I didn't do anything. I just spent the night there because I had an accident. Tan narrowed his eyes, voice harsh. You think I'll believe that? Everyone knows your reputation. You come out of her house early in the morning and expect me to just let you go? Explain yourself. Tai scowled, his voice growing rough. I don't have time for this. I told you I didn't touch anyone. Believe it or not, that's up to you. He yanked free and climbed onto his old motorbike. Seeing that he was about to drive off, Tan immediately blocked his way. Stop. "You're not leaving until you explain." The two began to struggle fiercely. Tai, still injured, didn't want to fight. He just tried to push Ton aside to get away. Ton, increasingly agitated, clung tightly to the handlebars. Their shouting echoed down the empty road. Finally, Tai seized a brief moment when Tana's grip loosened, twisted the throttle hard, and sped off, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Ton froze for a second, then jumped onto his own motorbike and took off after him, his mind fixed on a single thought. "I need to get to the bottom of this. I can't just let him disappear like that." His engine roared as he raced down the winding dirt road, breaking the quiet of the morning, marking the start of a tense chase. The winding village road, usually peaceful in the morning, suddenly erupted with noise, the roar of engines and the screeching of tires tearing across the dirt. Up ahead, Tai hunched low over his handlebars, throttling the bike to its limit. His messy hair whipped wildly in the wind, and a defiant grin crept across his face. Glancing back to see Ton closing in, his blood boiled with excitement. "This guy thinks he can scare me? Keep chasing. I'll show him." Tai twisted the throttle even harder. The old motorbike howled sharply as it shot like an arrow down the narrow dirt path. There was not a hint of fear in him, only the fiery thrill of competition, as if this were a speed race rather than a dangerous pursuit. Behind him, Ton gritted his teeth, eyes locked forward in intense focus. He knew chasing Tai on such a narrow road was risky, but the thought that this man might have hurt Han left him no choice. "You bastard, stop right there." Both motorbikes raced neck and neck, neither yielding an inch. Tai kept glancing back, deliberately making rude gestures and even slamming his brakes suddenly to throw Ton off, forcing him to swerve dangerously to avoid crashing. His taunting only fueled Tana's fury. Tightening his grip on the handlebars, Ton accelerated, determined not to let Tai get away. Their engines echoed through the village, drawing startled looks from passers-by along the road. The wind slapped against their faces, dust rose in thick clouds, but neither man slowed, one running with arrogant pride, the other chasing with burning rage. The chase grew increasingly intense. One sharp turn could send everything spiraling out of control. The dirt road narrowed as it wound toward the fields, riddled with potholes and tight bends. The roar of their bikes broke the morning stillness, signaling that this was no ordinary pursuit. Up front, Tai kept looking back, jeering. "Faster! Come on, catch me if you can." He didn't realize that his own recklessness was pushing the situation toward the brink of disaster. Ton, meanwhile, grew even more enraged at Tai's mockery. He leaned forward, accelerating, eyes locked on the bike ahead. The wind howled in his ears. His heart pounded like a drum. In his mind, only one thought remained. "I can't let him get away. I have to catch him." They approached a sharp bend on the left, a deep rice field. On the right, a dense bamboo grove. Tai, familiar with the road, handled the turn smoothly. Ton, however, was going too fast, his judgment clouded by anger. Suddenly, his front wheel plunged into a deep patch of mud, losing traction. In a split second, the handlebars jerked violently. Ton tried to regain control, but it was too late. The bike swerved uncontrollably and crashed onto the road with a heavy thud. Ton was thrown several meters, rolling across the rough dirt. Metal scraped loudly against the ground as a cloud of dust erupted around him. His arm burned from abrasions, and his knee slammed hard, sending a jolt of pain through his body. The bike lay on its side, the wheels spinning idly, gasoline leaking into a thin dark trail on the ground. Hearing the crash, Tai glanced back. For a brief moment he hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. But his selfish, combative nature won out. He gunned the throttle and sped away, leaving Ton behind. Ton lay flat on his back, breathing heavily, his face smeared with dust and sweat. Pain radiated through his body, but his eyes still burned with anger and worry for Han. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to sit up despite his trembling limbs. "No, I can't stop here." He grabbed the bike, struggling to lift it upright as blood began seeping from his scraped knee. The chase had paused, but the battle inside him raged on. Panting, wincing from pain, he tried to stand, gripping the tilted bike for support. His knee bled, his arm stung, but his determination refused to break. "I have to get up. I can't give up here." He staggered a few steps before a wave of dizziness crashed over him like icy water. The world blurred and tilted. The sounds of wind and rustling leaves faded as if drifting away. A second later, his legs buckled, and his body collapsed onto the cold dirt road with a dull thump. Everything around him dimmed to black, as though a heavy curtain had fallen over the world. The sound of Ty's engine had long disappeared. Only silence remained. The morning breeze swept through, carrying a few dry leaves skimming along the ground. By the roadside, Tan lay motionless, his face streaked with dirt, clothes disheveled, breath shallow. No one was there. No voices. No footsteps approaching. Only the empty road, the still bamboo groves, and one man lying alone, silent, unnoticed, as time seemed to freeze in that cold, heavy moment. Meanwhile, at the small house on the edge of the village, the morning atmosphere was a complete contrast to the scene where Tan lay unconscious. After a long, tense night, Han and An were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. The two friends sat at their familiar wooden table, enjoying a simple breakfast of bread and steaming hot tea. An smiled as she ate, her tone far lighter than the night before. If it weren't for him waking up this morning, we'd probably be relaxing by now. Han chuckled softly, though traces of last night's tension still lingered inside her. She nodded. Yeah, it really was a restless night. But thankfully it's over now. We got through it in one piece. They fell into a comfortable silence for a few seconds before An changed the topic, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Hey, yesterday you said you found a spot full of curry berry bushes that no one's harvested yet, right? Why don't we go pick some this morning? Han nodded eagerly, her face brightening. She had stumbled upon the bushes by chance while gathering bamboo near the forest the other day. The ripe yellow fruits were fragrant and abundant, yet no one seemed to pay attention to them, perfect for cooking, drying, or selling at the market for a decent profit. After tidying up the dishes, the two donned their conical hats, grabbed a few woven baskets, and set off for their little harvesting trip. The path leading to the forest edge gleamed under the soft morning sun. The air was fresh and crisp after last night's rain, and birds chirped happily in every direction. An skipped along beside Han, chatting cheerfully. That place is so cool and shady, and those berries look amazing. If we gather a lot today, let's make a big feast tonight. Han laughed brightly. Sounds great. I was planning to pickle a few jars to save for later too. The berries are growing really well this year. Their laughter rang through the narrow village road as they walked, unaware that just a short distance ahead, a very different scene awaited them. An carried her basket in front of her, animatedly talking about dishes they could make with the ripe curry berries. Han smiled, occasionally adding a playful comment. Neither suspected that only a short distance away, something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, An stopped in her tracks, squinting toward the roadside in the distance. Han, I think someone's lying over there. Startled, Han followed Anna's gaze. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw a figure sprawled beside a fallen motorbike. The hazy morning light made it hard to see clearly at first, but as they got closer, both of them recognized him. Tan. Oh my God, Tan! Han cried out in panic and ran toward him. Tan lay motionless, his face covered in dirt, his clothes disheveled, with blood oozing from scrapes on his knee and arm. His bike was tipped over beside the road, a dark trail of spilled gasoline marking the ground. An quickly knelt beside him and shook his shoulder gently. Tan! Tan, can you hear me? No response. Tan remained still, his breathing shallow and weak. Trembling, Han knelt beside him, panic and fear surging inside. Oh no! He must have had an accident. We need to get him to the clinic right away. An swiftly pulled out her phone to call for help, while Han carefully checked to see if he had any head injuries. The serene morning atmosphere vanished, replaced by urgency and fear hanging over the quiet village road. Anna's hand shook as she dialed, her voice stammering in panic. Han cradled Tana's head gently in her hands, her face pale with worry. Tan, hang in there. Can you hear me? She whispered, her voice trembling. Ton let out a faint groan, but his eyes remained closed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His breathing labored and uneven. Seeing him like that crushed Han's heart. A wave of fear overwhelmed her, and tears welled up in her eyes. Moments later, several villagers rushed over. A middle-aged man shouted, "Quick! Lift him onto the cart, and get him to the health station right away." Everyone worked together efficiently. Two young men carefully lifted Ton, making sure not to hurt him further. Han stayed right by his side, never taking her eyes off him. She held his hand tightly as the cart began to move, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Han sat behind, calling ahead to the clinic to prepare. The road wasn't long, but to Han, every meter felt endless. Worry and guilt gnawed at her. If only I had stayed home this morning. If only I'd known sooner. He wouldn't be in this state. The wind whipped past as the cart rattled down the bumpy village path. Han reached over to squeeze Han's shoulder reassuringly. "Stay calm. He's probably just unconscious. We're almost there." Han nodded faintly, but silent tears kept rolling down her cheeks. Watching Ton lie there unconscious made her chest tighten. A mix of fear, sorrow, and something deeper she couldn't name. The cart gradually disappeared behind the bamboo groves, heading toward the village clinic, carrying with it both worry and unspoken feelings inside Han's heart, feelings she herself had never dared to face. The three-wheeled cart screeched to a halt in front of the village health clinic, the sharp sound of the brakes jolting Han out of her chaotic thoughts. The moment the cart stopped, she immediately jumped down, rushing to the back to help the others lift Ton off. Han's heart pounded relentlessly, as if it might burst from her chest. Every second she saw Ton lying there motionless, his face pale and his breathing weak, felt like someone was squeezing her heart tighter and tighter, making it hard to breathe. "Careful! Please be careful!" she stammered, her voice trembling with emotion. Once they brought Ton into the emergency room and the door closed behind him, Han stood out in the hallway, her hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles turned white. She barely noticed her surroundings, the footsteps of people passing by, the distant crackle of the loudspeaker. All of it faded into a thick fog of anxiety. Her mind replayed fragments of the morning in chaotic flashes. The moment she found Ton collapsed by the roadside, his faint groan as he regained a sliver of consciousness, and the image of him speeding off into the mist to chase Tai. "Why did you chase after him? Why didn't I call you sooner? If something really happens, what will I do?" Her throat tightened. A single hot tear suddenly rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, but more followed, uncontrollable. Han approached gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Han, don't panic. The doctors will save him. You have to stay calm, okay?" Han nodded weakly, unable to form any words. Inside her a storm of emotions raged. Fear, worry, regret, and a deep ache she could hardly name. She stared at the closed emergency room door. It felt like an unyielding barrier separating her from someone who had become far too important, and she was powerless to do anything. Each passing minute stretched endlessly like hours. "You have to be okay. Tom, please, you have to be okay. Don't scare me like this." She clutched the hem of her shirt, her heart throbbing painfully with every uneven tick of time. This wasn't just concern for a friend anymore. It was the raw fear of someone whose heart was finally realizing just how much he meant to her. As she sat outside the room, memories of Ton flooded her mind like a film playing in reverse. The times he quietly helped her patch the leaky roof. The rainy days he gave her and Tom a ride to the market. The small, caring gestures that always made her heart flutter unexpectedly. If only I'd had the courage to tell him sooner. She clenched her cold, trembling hands. Through the glass window she could see Tom lying unconscious, and the sight pierced her heart. She wanted to thank him for being there, for caring, for protecting her. But now all those unsaid words were trapped inside, replaced by searing regret. Tears streamed down her cheeks one after another. She covered her mouth to stifle her sobs, but her shoulders shook uncontrollably. On sat beside her, gently taking her hand, her voice warm yet steady. Han, stay strong. Tana's tough, he'll pull through. You need to be strong for him. When he wakes up, the first person he should see is you. Han looked up, eyes red and filled with tears, her voice choked. I really regret it. I've wanted to tell him so many times, but I was scared of losing our friendship. And now seeing him like this, I'm terrified. An squeezed her hand tighter, her eyes full of understanding. She had long known about Han's feelings for Tan, the feelings Han herself had never dared to admit. Now watching her friend crumble like this, all An could do was offer silent support. I know, but right now the most important thing is to believe in him. Tan won't give up so easily. You have to be strong for him. Hearing those words, Han finally broke down, sobbing into Anna's shoulder as raw, powerful emotions surged inside her. Love, worry, fear of loss, all tangled together. In her heart, she made a silent vow. If Tan wakes up, I won't hide my feelings anymore. Not for another second. The clinic grew quiet, with only the sound of the wind rustling through the windows and the muffled sobs of a heart in love but too late to speak. Will Han get another chance to tell Tan how she truly feels? Or will she lose him forever? Everyone, let's pray that Tan pulls through this crisis. And don't miss the next episode of the story.
Hello mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục đưa đến cho mọi người câu chuyện về người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân và một biến cố đã xảy đến với Thành. Trong khi Thành cố gắng rượt đuổi tiên ti, Thành đã gặp tai nạn. Liệu rằng anh có vượt qua được tai nạn lần này hay không? Và Hân sẽ bày tỏ tình cảm của mình với Thành như thế nào? Thì mời mọi người đón xem ở video tiếp theo. Ở video tiếp theo thì sẽ có nhiều tình tiết cảm động hơn về câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân. Và video tiếp theo mình sẽ phát hành vào lúc 7 giờ tại khung giờ Việt Nam. Mọi người nhớ chú ý đón xem và ủng hộ mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video ngày hôm nay. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người.